the chair of the subcommittee of the African American Collection Committee of the California Social Welfare Archives. Our group, the Archives, was established in 1978, and it was originally envisioned and the idea of Francis Lomas Feldman. Dr. Feldman was a pioneer in social work in California, and that was at the California School of Social Welfare at the University of California. She really worked hard with many other individuals who were concerned with saving and looking at and collecting and preserving our history as social workers in California. The real objectives of the archives is to begin to have a place where students can come and social workers can have a history, and we can connect the past with the future. Today, I have a real honor and a privilege of introducing a person that is a true pioneer, and actually the person that I want to introduce is Carmelita White. And let me tell you a little bit about Carmelita. Carmelita was the first African American to graduate from a program in social work. The program that she graduated from was established in 1921 by Dr. Emery Bogardus, and Dr. Bogardus established a certificated program in social welfare in 1921. And Carmelita was the first graduate. Carmelita went on to also receive an MSW, which is a Master's of Social Work of Science and Social Welfare, in 1921. So this, again, was a real honor and a privilege because she truly is a pioneer. And today we are going to hear more about her and the challenges that she experienced and what she brings to the field of social work. We have, though, two young social workers that will be talking to Carmelita. First, I'd like to introduce Nancy Jeffries. And Nancy graduated from the School of Social Work, University of Southern California, in 1982. She currently works for the Los Angeles Unified School District, and she is a psychiatric social worker with the School of Mental Health there. Next, I'd like for you to meet Marcia Wilson, and Marcia is a graduate of the class of 1987, University of Southern California School of Social Work. And Marcia is also in our doctoral program at the university, and she works at El Nido Services, which is a private United Way agency where she provides family counseling for children and their families. So at this time, I would like for you both to begin a dialogue with our distinguished guests. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, maybe we should begin kind of where
Can you read my person? Sorry. I was taken. And I don't remember the year because I didn't remember the picture until night before I was looking for something. It's the first orchestra citywide for the school. And that was way back in there, probably about,
right here it says 1915.
1950.
Uh-huh.
That's when this was
Wow.
good. And then they were so good. We were so good because I was in it. And they had a lovely concert at the Philharmonic Auditorium. And we really sold the goods.
What did you play?
Violin.
Great.
What do I play now?
Violin.
Still?
I got it back, I had it in the house.
But we still have it, huh?
Yes, because I don't know what else to do with it.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school to
At where?
Poly.
To Poly? Where was that?
Polytechnic up here in Adams at Washington University.
Washington.
And I lived in Ellie's district, but I didn't like Ellie. And I didn't like, and I decided I would go someplace else.
So way from the beginning, you were making your own decisions.
Always a different member of the family.
When did you graduate from high school? What year did you graduate?
In 30 months. From high school.
From high school?
No, 27. And I graduated from UCLA, from USC in 31.
1931. That's when you got your MSSW.
Got them both at the same time.
Oh.
Went up twice to let them know we really had to, so we had to go with one and go back to the results of all. And then I went back third, called him back again. So I went back up, got the second.
That's great.
It's in here.
What is it, your diploma?
That's the clinic see if I can special certification.
Maybe while we're looking through that, for some of that information, you can, maybe we can back up a little bit and you can talk about your decision to come to SC.
I came to SC because I wanted to take social work, and was the only place I had.
This was the only school of social work?
That's right, the only one. And of course, it was good for me because I had to come on the bus, on the streetcar, but it really didn't take long to get from where I lived. But there was no one. You either went there, didn't go. And I decided I wanted to be a social worker, so that's why I went.
What made you decide that you wanted to be a social worker?
I've always liked people, and children especially. If it had not been for other people's children, I would have had some money today. Because I would invariably take 4 or 5 little boys. We go on the train, any place, and then bring them home. Then I take some of the girls, because the girls' restroom might be in one corner, please. So I always, so I generally made making a trip for the girls and the boys. I called it one trip, but it was 2. I generally did this about 3 or 4 times a year.
Was that prior to you becoming a social actually, or was that something that you did on your own?
No, I did it on my own, not on my own pocketbook with no connections. And people over there didn't even know.
Well, what a dedication. I mean, just really, just a genuine interest in the benefit and welfare of children.
And children, well, we took each other. And they were always so happy. And we'd go to church and I'd get the little birthday. I'd go something. Can we miss one? Oh, yeah. And we could go. But the cute thing, one little boy would never leave his parents, so he wouldn't do it. So we go to San Diego. And he decided to go and take him. He said, oh yes, he wants to go. Except he can't. And we're talking about it. Well, finally, he got so excited walking up to the place to get go through. He, first thing he had gone through the door, and I'm still standing on this side, so, and I said, I'm coming, so we went on so he couldn't go back. But the sister, oh, she And as soon as the train started out, the father said she started crying, I wish I was on that train.
She wanted to go
She
too.
wanted to go too. So she said she'd go again, but she's never. Of course, now she's out of college and been working 3 years at the Kaiser. So she, I don't know what she's interested in doing, except now I can't read it.
So it was your love of kids that drew you to social work, and this was the only program. So what was it like being the only, we call it African American today, what was it like being the only African American at the school?
Well, I tell you, it was interesting. And it was much like you wouldn't expect. Dr. Bogartis was the first. Bogartis was the dean of the school, I think, in Old Town. Anyway, Bogartis, what did he do this time? When they started coming in class, and the first day I knew some people who were going to school, but they had some of them background. And so, before I got all the way into the main building, I met a young lady from St. Elizabeth. She came out to finish her teaching grade, and she was another thing I was scared. So we decided where we would meet at and we talked till the day.
You've maintained that relationship?
Oh, I guess we talk more here in Los Angeles to St. Louis than I do to be in Los Angeles and vice versa. And of course now she selects her family except her children. So anyway, they told me how to get to this room. So I went out, and there was a door in front of me. And isn't there a door at the back of that room? Anyway, I went in and sat just about midway through the first section. I don't know. And then pretty soon others started coming in. And I started to see a bunch of them go on the other side. And I looked at them, they looked like they're Airbrushing. Well, the first thing I knew, they started coming in this section. And evidently, they had the same feeling, because they knew that other side could not stand for me to be in there. And this group knew that other thing been done about. And so it was pretty bad. The half that sat on the side of the room that I was on, we went through 4 years together in classes, and it's many of us have remained friends since then. But that other group, oh, no. If these hadn't come in, you'd never heard of me, my throat would have been cut. But they, from the very place, they never could have done anything that would have made them happy. And it got nothing. But just without trying, some of these others were just always enough. So it was fun then to me.
So they didn't say anything to you, it was just clear by their attitude and what they said, and you had your support system of people who were on your side.
It just turned out that because I didn't know one person. When one started going one, and the others just stopped running, and finally this section was filled up and that section too. And this section was filled up with good people, and that was filled up, and they would go back and roll their eyes. And some of these old people said, don't you be like that, I'll come over and get you. So I never had to work, because first place, the first 2 years, at that time, I don't know what they knew, start on your social work until after you had taken all the subjects that you had to take in the first 2 years. So I made it through, and it was very happy. I enjoyed it very much. As long as I knew that half of the campus, at least, that was following me was on my side. So we had no lots of fun.
Was there ever something that you discussed openly with the other students or with any professors, this whole division, this whole racial division? Was it something that was ever really discussed or talked about?
Well, the groups that sat around me started talking. They're the ones. They said, I'm sure none of those folks sat over there. And so that you went, they were not together. And just about every day, they were just ready to lay down. They could not stand anybody. So then I knew that I was saying, I have from so, and then going to the other classes. And then when the only 2 things that we really studied, our 3rd year, we had 12 hours a week of art school time, working with the, we had 2 groups. The, I forgot what they called. Anyway, I did mine with YMCA.
Was it your field, like the field placement?
No, we're just on, that's just students, just to help out whatever they want to do.
Just volunteer work, volunteering?
Volunteers, so we could give us a grade. That was compulsory on your foot. And then, the 2nd year, the 4th year, you had to go in where you did the social. And that's the only, we never had anything. They came up themselves. But when we finished that, and we either graduated or we just failed. But of course, once we high school, you done the table and graduated.
Yeah, it's great. Did many people fail?
I really don't know. And the reason for it, because at that time, at the end of that semester, is when I graduated. See? And my father, I think so much afterwards that he, my being his daughter, helped me. I would go down there when I was in high school. I would go leave at 5 o'clock one morning with him because I didn't know where he was. I knew he wrote in the building where the director. And interesting enough, he wouldn't eat. But the entire welfare department, the head of it was A.C. Price. And he was in this small meeting building with us in a room just in the corner right up there. And my father ran the outfit. So they started to stop bringing the checks, paychecks early, so they could get them in time. Started bringing sometime around then. Well, it's been since my father was many days wouldn't be able to go for he. So one night at home he said, one of these children should be able to go down there and do this one.
Bring him his lunch.
No, for him to get out of the building and go. And cash his check and pay some bills now.
Take care of business.
Yeah. So, my brothers, this is a brother, a sister, and 2 brothers. They were older, and then I came from number 7, long ways down from. But me, I would venture anything once. So this night we sat around talking, and some of the boys came to because they were going to school part-time and work. And my older sister said, well, I'm sure I made a mistake, you said. I says, I can do it, Papa.
Run the elevator?
Just like, oh, but I learned to do it. Yeah.
This isn't one of those you just go in and push the button. This is you actually have to pull the lever and...
Practically pull the building. But I certainly came up, left no time between. I can do it, Papa. So Mama Papa looked at Papa thinking, I believe that child can do it. Mama said, I do too. Because I was not afraid of it. Like every day I could take one of my brother's bikes out. And if you get over to Olympic and Normandy, go one block east to Mariposa, and go up Mariposa to Pico, and you see the hills, and I would come down. The bicycle was 5 feet on the handlebar, because my brothers, you see, I was just a charming family. They thought that their baby sister was the grandest thing that ever hit this country. So they would take me through riding the bike. And it was wrong. See, they each had their bikes. They'd come, Mama, we're going biking. We don't gonna take Carmen. She says, why? Because Mama, if I missed one or three of those boys, it would make a difference. I was as safe if I was with my mother and father. Because they would whip anybody, so don't do anything. Just don't bother our baby sister.
So you really grew up not having any kind of fear,
Oh,
and just a lot of daring, and that's kind of what makes a pioneer, is being willing to kind of move forward and ahead.
maybe that's why I stayed on job so long, a pioneer.
I think that you're right. I think that you're right. So you took over the job when your dad got paid. You ran the elevator.
Oh, I ran it before. He taught me, see, I didn't want to drive right from home down. But he decided that he really didn't want that. I was going to pass. And Mr. Price's office was just there on the corner on that particular floor. So many times, Mr. Price would come in and say, after I learned to drive, they said, Mr. White, your daughter can drive that elevator. We don't get to talk. Come on in here. And sometimes he'd take my father and his mom. They might sit there 2 or 3 hours talking. I'm just driving this thing. It was about this big round, about that big. And you pull it up and you pull it down. And then you get the next one and pull it up. And then you go for these doors, 2 of these metal. I guess that's why I got the strength I get my brothers and mom. Anyway, I went in, and the people who were working in that building, it was just that particular office. But they were on different floors because not enough room. Didn't have much room in the building anyway. And so that when they would come up, they'd say, oh, now we got to write that operator. What you do with your father? I didn't do anything. Price came to them and cooked him and kept him after all right with me because I won't write it though. Run it though, maybe as long as I'm here. Oh, I tell you, I was a character. So, and every day when I come home from school, if I could get him and get my brother one of the bikes out, and they weren't there because see, they probably had some work. You should take me. And I'd have to push it on them because we are supposed to like this and up to 11th like this and cross and then 11 some more and then right up to 12th Street. So I'd have to push that thing up there and I'd stop puff and blow. And then I'd finally get up there and have to stretch out the legs. And I started 12th Street and pump as fast as I could to the beginning of the hill. And my feet would go on the handlebars. And I came down to zoom down. Never had sense enough to fall into.
Makes me scared
I'm
thinking
telling
about it.
Oh, I tell you, I was afraid of nothing.
Christ somewhat influential in terms of your interest in social work? I know that you said he and your father had somewhat of a relationship.
Well, you see, they had worked together, see, because long before I was ready to go into it. But Pop was always telling me about his children. He had such fine children. I don't know if they're fine. He told them that. And they knew us. You know, not by name or anything, but he'd tell us about this, my hopes and so forth. So I don't know what he told them. I'm so sure he told them his baby's going in social work because he was so happy just so. And then, you see, up where he was working. So I'm sure he told. But never has. But anyway, by the time it was ready for me to go, they knew an awful lot.
Yeah,
Awful
sure.
lot.
Dad was talking about his baby.
Oh, I was always late. So anyway, when I had started up there, it was the first day in every month. I was ready before 5 o'clock. We left and got the 5 o'clock bus, 5 o'clock street guy, and went down, then had to walk parking P2. That was all right. I'm going to pay the bill. So anyhow, it was lots of fun. And I came out of the line. And so naturally when I got there, those who didn't know me. And by the time I graduated, the time I started into, not graduated high school, and was going to school, I couldn't get up there to regular because I had to go over and see this one day. All the rest of us over there. But we just seen one thing every district, like Pasadena, Altadena, maybe down in the town. There's someone at the door. There's, would be somebody. So, because no one could get another person check, they sent all of the checks for the welfare department for this particular office there. And of course, they could just go in the office and get there. But all the rest of Pasadena, Altadena, Long Beach, all the government offices in town, every person had to come up for their own check. They were not permitted to give it to somebody else. By the time I was through up there, they just went on with it. I didn't know them, I just knew. You know, they worked there, where they worked. But they all knew me. So just not everybody worked in the department of all the districts. Just like they knew my father's name. So that,
I think, Nancy, did you find the certificate that?
You know, what I did find was, let's see what this is. It says the university, it looks like the certificate. Yes, the certificate in social work. It
that's
says
right. But you know,
University of Southern California, to all to whom these letters shall come, greeting, trustees of the university on the recommendation of the faculty of the School of Social Welfare, and by virtue of the authority in them vested, awarded to Carmelita White, who has satisfactorily pursued the studies and passed the examinations required therefore, this certificate in social work with all the rights, privileges, and honors thereunto appertaining, given at Los Angeles in the state of California on the 6th day of June in the year of our Lord 1931.
now, this is, we got both of, well, we got that together.
That one too?
Yeah. Now, this one,
That's the back Bachelor of
That's
Arts.
free Bachelor of Arts. We first got this, and went back and sat down and thought this it. Then they called Jeff and gave me this.
Oh, and give you that.
Oh.
Okay, that's what you meant, so you have to go back up there twice, so
Yeah,
get both of them.
Yeah, and you see, this one was only a certificate. It wasn't until 46 that they registered social work.
Oh, okay, so first you got the certificate in 31, and then it wasn't until 1946 that it was considered registered, and that's when you got your registered social worker.
Everybody who was in social work got the certificate, and you worked on the certificate. But then the state passed and registered it. And so then we got that from 21 to, what's that, 46?
What did that mean in 1946 that you became a registered social worker? How did they acknowledge the field of social work in a different light, or?
Never, yes, you understand, they just told him to come down, they moved him, and got it,
Gave you the paper.
gave him the paper, and that's it. There was no explanation what to do. We did exactly the same thing the day we got the registration as we've been doing from 21 with the certificate. But they were never official from the state.
So after you get your degree in 31, so here you are, go twice, get your certificate. What did you do? Did you already have a job? Did you have a position already? What did you do right after you graduated?
Well, I actually didn't know I had a job. But after I got home from graduation, my father says, I got some more information. He says that they have put you on the payroll there for tomorrow morning, so you have to go.
That's great.
So the next morning, and from then until the bitter end. So I didn't bother about anything. And then one of the directors of one of the, what were directors they called? They called the director of the district. She happened to be the one on the floor where easy fight. And of course, it was just like a family, because there were only about, maybe 10, 11 districts in the whole county. And she happened to be, and there was one downstairs. But otherwise, they had, no matter where they were, they had to go. So anyway, she did her first claim for me. I discovered all this afterwards. And so I said, well, where did I go? He said, well, go to the same. And Dr. Price will tell you where you're going, and he'll talk to you. So I went from down, just like I'm somebody inside. He talked to me, explained what's what was, and took me to the next room. That was going to be my director. Oh, she was a lady. It's kind of hefty. Had a haircut on short. And when she get upset, you can't describe your office. But in the corner, see, like the little corner sitting out there, it was a little cupboard. Had a wash basin, you could wash your hand. There was a loose thing on there you could put, you had any medicine you want to get. And you back out and close it up. So she took me to our district, which was 3 rooms. And the 3 rooms would have all fit in this room.
Wow, small, very small. Huh?
With one clerk for the district, one steno for the district who took everything in charge, and the director, and 5 workers. And I come out number 6. And oh, she was so proud to help me. Well, I got a Carmelita. So I thought, well, that old friend only couldn't have what anybody is.
But
There was only, well, there was one on the next 2 floors. The second 30 we bought for. So we got on fine. But whenever she would get upset, she'd come in and open his cupboard and wet his hair. And she'd brush her hair. Oh, she would just go. And she'd wet it again and go. And I told her, look, can I move to that other end there? 'Cause she just might throw some water on there.
What was her name? Do you recall?
And
Ann Newman?
Ann was her first name.
Yes.
And Newberg was her last name.
Newberg. And that was your first supervisor?
But she was when you got to know her. And when she'd go on these bells. She really hit.
She had that hairbrush on.
No, the hairbrush was always back there where she could get the water because it had, she was throwing water on her hair. Like, never went in there with, that's why she left it open. And the place was small, you know. I think she might get too much water on that and swing it out. Anyhow, one day I was there for something. I don't know why. Because I've always said, I won't ever go in there. That's somebody knows. He said, if you're going to talk to her, you go and anybody else. But we aren't going. We aren't going in there with you. So anyway, I went in to ask her. And she spoke kind of harsh. And it frightened me. I don't know whether she thought I was crying or what. And just as sweet, she says, oh, I don't bother. And she could just want the other. And she'd do it, you see, they didn't know it would just kind of frighten me. And so we got used to that. So we got on just fine. That was my thing.
And what exactly did you do on your first job? Like, what did you interview people? Did you have to talk to them when you gave them checks? And what is?
No, we didn't give them the checks. The checks were made up to them. No, they came in. If they needed right, but they come in. But she was in the old age, you see. And that the traveling. The YWCA, you see, was not connected with the county. So if I had gone to do my years prior in a in an agency that was connected with the county, then I could have taken the second year. But I was glad I didn't, because I knew all the people that were YWCA. And the secretary was one of my best friends. Nobody knew. So, until after I got to it.
You want to tell them that?
No, and she didn't tell me. And so, it worked out very well. But then near the end, and I was trying to think the other day how they decided to get together. Oh, first, I knew Travelers Aid was not going to be. At that time, you would walk in the door, or the doors open. All the signs you see all over the train station, bus station, traffic, this here's this thing. So I knew they weren't going to hire me. So I got myself assigned for just experience, thinking I'm working down there. I didn't know they worked at homes too. So I went down there and discovered that they were working in the homes and found out right away that my first call was going to be a home. Then, and same guy. So I decided not to go in. Well, nobody told the people at the office Papa knew that that was the year I had to start for Sony Vegas. And they just all took it for granted I was coming down. Nobody asked me anything. And I went up. But I just wanted a little taste of what this would be. Because I knew that would be the only way. Because I had worked even before I was in school. I mean, when I had to do that first, the third year at the Y, I had been working at it. So I was not. So I went down. And when I found where I was going, I went and came back. I came home. Oh, I was so heartbroken. He said, I was so embarrassed. I said, what happened? Well, you didn't show up. I said, I wasn't doing nothing. I didn't come anything. He said, well, they just thought you would just automatically come in. But see, they didn't tell me they were all expecting me. But I knew they were expecting me. But then I didn't leave after the school. Well, anyhow, I was glad to get out. So I was with Travel Saint for 1 month, making home call. And then what I did was have myself officially assigned to the welfare. And then after I explained to him, he went and they said, well, we can understand that. Now, so when I came, he said, you're going to have us fool that for a while. I said, well, I wasn't going to stay. I just wanted to see what they was doing. So we got through with that. And so, actually, by the time I finished, at the end of that year, I just about knew all the people in the department because they all had to come to that department to get their checks.
What exactly is Traveler's Aid? I guess I'm not too familiar with that.
When people come in out of town, they have no place to stay, no relatives, anything. Travel saves places.
Oh, okay. So they place them in homes and helps them get acquainted to the neighborhood. And
I don't know, they didn't even say that, no. I went down there 3 different times.
you stood there.
And that was 3 too many.
What was the highlight, or do you remember any particular incident or a particular family that you worked with that kind of comes to mind that you continue to remember?
Oh, there's one that I'll never. And it wasn't because of the family. Because I felt sorry for the family, and it was a birthday hymn. He was the one who led the riots that we had. And I mean, they were not just playing. One was at 2nd and Broadway, on the 4th floor, across the street. Now see, I was born here, but I always have to still stop and get my streets to go in the right direction. Broadway. Yeah. We went in town on 10th Street, so that was east and west.
Yes.
And we got up there and turned on Broadway. We'd go north and south, except never do that. It would go up to Broadway and turn and go on up 10th Street. On Broadway, but 10th Street. And we had to tell them, this is Broadway. So the streetcar then, in this building where we were, from Temple back to Spring was 1 block. The half on the north end was the courthouse at the corner, and the next building was the Hall of Records. Then there was this alley, and that's where they put up the new state building. from that alley down to First and from Broadway to Hill. You remember that? And so I never understood this. This was, now that street's going north and south. No, it's going east and west like 10th Street. And then this was Hill and Broadway. Then Spring Street. Now they made a wide street here. Beautiful street. And about as much as from here on, it's just concrete sidewalk. Why? So the bus came here and cut across here and cut across through the alley between these two places to come out to Broadway. So if you wanted to get the car on the Broadway, bus on Broadway, you'd come around here and get on this side. And then you'd go to the corner and across the street to get the car that you wanted to take. Well, you should have just stayed on here and come on down. Anyhow, they finally took it. But we worked up there for a long time. Well, this building was on Hill, which is going your hill's going north. Yes. The building was on the northeast corner. And it was much bigger than the one where we were over on New House, where they came around this corner. Across the street, there was a building about the same size. And we got in and started working. Suddenly we heard screaming and tearing up. Now at that time, Mr. Price had been moved over into administration. And the director was in that room working. And we didn't have walk-in quick drinking trees in that bottle. And so there was always several bottles in her room, so any of the other authors wanted to come up and get it. We heard this, and bang, 5-gallon can hit the bottom hit. Well, fortunately, there was 1, 2, 3 rooms. They would lock between each other, and each would lock to go in the hall. And that was on the same on each floor. That's why we had to have 3 floors. 3 floors we had to have. And fortunately, the men who worked in the office happened to have been up on that floor. And so they were able to separate the men. Otherwise, that woman would have been killed. And they pushed her in the room next to her and said, lock this on her. Because they didn't know whether the people let anybody but them. Because they had double locks on them, which was good. There were 3 in the next room. I didn't tremble. But I'm sure if it had been now, I'd have been.
What was the genesis of that? I mean, what was he so upset?
Every time he would get the time that he was supposed to work to earn the money for that month, he was peaches and cream. He'd go out and work and come in to get his money. And then he could fight the rest of the time. And so he fought all the time. So we locked the door, and we heard him talk on the other side. So I knocked and said, lock both sides of the door. Then we locked ours, and the other people locked both of the sides between ours and the ones to the hall. And they had the big doors, and the glass was about this wide, and almost almost as long as the table, and as wide as that big table, same way. The width of this table, and about that much, and it was this heavy, rough crosses. So you pass, you could see a shadow, but you couldn't tell which way. So we could tell every time somebody. I tell you, and the screaming and the howling and breaking, they broke up almost every 5 gallon of water that was sitting there.
Well, they were made of glass back then, not plastic like our sparkling bottles now.
Oh, they were like,
Was he doing all this by himself?
oh, no. No, he just, I don't know whether he threatens a man to them, but they come in with it.
Oh, they were
This-
dealing with him.
This time, it was just the man with it. But about a year and a half later, the same man, see, his specialty was starting riots.
Was starting right.
Oh. The next time he came, we had moved up to 4th and he came up there.
You just had a problem with your welfare.
And we had, it was pretty much the same, could walk between them. But I tell you, he came in and had all these men fighting, and we women were scared.
Sure,
Every,
certainly.
and the police, I tell you, thought they had half of the police force. And both places, each time they came, was about 2 years apart. And within 2 hours, and we were locked up until over 4 hours before they got everything cleared out and waited. And would let us unlock our rooms to come out so they could get us out of the building and wait. And so we lived through that. But within 2 hours after that riot started, and it was still going, and it's a wonder they didn't jump on the men who were there, because they were in there knocking. These fellows trying to get them. And people across the street held up the newspaper. You live in for these, you out these, what they call special, something would happen, and then even in the night, they, anyway, they held up this paper, and letters like that, riot and welfare.
Oh, you're like, I was there.
So let us know what was happening in there, as if we didn't know.
Yeah.
We thought it. And it was before they actually took us out and got us away from that neighborhood. It was about five and a half hours.
How long did you work for the welfare department?
I worked for it from the day after the 30th
It says 1969. This is your retirement certificate.
retirement, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's about the alumni section.
I started to work. I graduated at Poly, and I mean, UC. And that's the day I'll never forget, because I don't think there's ever been a hotter day.
That was the 6th of June, the day that you graduated from USC in 31.
Yeah, I think that was it. I know it was in June the 30th. And it was hot. And I must, don't let me forget to show you the picture of old college I studied. It's that way back then, lots of trees, so it was nice and cool. But it was hot, and we had on these robes and we had long socks. And we stood there for an hour until we were all lined up and they was ready at the Coliseum. Now this, remember, there's Jefferson and there's 34th Street.
Yes.
And then 36 is Doheny. Okay, it took up all that space.
That many graduates.
We were lying. And then we very slowly marched as soldiers to the Coliseum.
Wow. In the heat.
In the heat, that's right.
With all this paraphernalia. Then you had to walk around in it and walk up steps of it.
So they held graduation, the actual ceremony in the Coliseum?
Right there on that Coliseum, with nothing above it but the sky. Wow, was it? And they landed so long, you see. And then they called you F1. And you said, well, I'm going to cool off by the time I get ready. And they called you again. Anyhow, we made, well, they told my father, don't tell your daughter. Because they had told him before. They kept him right up on everything. But he wouldn't tell me anything. Now, don't get He says, when you get home tonight and settle everything, go and eat. He told me that they had put me on the bake over the next morning.
So 1931, you retired in 1969?
69. Certificate of retirement.
County of Los Angeles.
38 years.
So, now that should hold you for a while, huh? She said I was expecting her to, sort of get sitting up with
Well, you know, this has been wonderful. It's just been so enjoyable just talking to you about what it was like. And we really want to thank you for taking the time to do this for us and for allowing us to preserve all of your experiences and your knowledge and, for the archives. And it's just been
right.
wonderful. Right. You know, exactly, like the Ryan's in the welfare department, the extra, that's what it's called, an extra, right? They're holding up. So we really just want to thank you so much because,
Well, I've enjoyed it. And of course, you notice that I like to talk. So she wouldn't hesitate to ask me. But I got so much on what you were actually involved in with the welfare work that part. Because I took that up first because I was going to mention some other things that were not nearly as interesting. Because you don't.
Thank you very much.